I'm so excited because today we get to interview my friend Monica Leonelle. Monica has many pen names as well as many podcasts, but the one thing you're definitely going to want to know her for is the Productive Novelist series. So, hi Monica, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
I'm so excited. So we interviewed Claire a couple weeks ago, and I met Claire at the Smarter Artist Summit, which is actually the same place I met Monica. Unfortunately for Kerry, she doesn't live in Austin, though. She's one of the few that doesn't live in Austin, Texas.
Shucks. That's where I'm at. I'm in Austin.
Okay, so the first question I want to ask is kind of like the general one. How did you get into writing, and what made you want to be a novelist?
I've wanted to be a novelist for a very long time, since I was in third grade, and I made a book. I actually still have that book. I should probably post it at some point. But I did illustrations and wrote out this whole book and stapled it together. I was pretty serious about it. So that was kind of the career I wanted as a young person. But then as I got older, I really felt like it wasn't really possible for me. So then I instead studied computer science in college, and then I got my MBA, and I went off to be a business professional. And so that's what I did for probably, I don't know, the first 6 to 8 years of my career. And then independent publishing came along, and I had been kind of writing a young adult novel on and off since 2008. And so in 2011, I had finished it and I published it. But part of the way I knew about self-publishing, which was what it was called at the time. Now we like to call it independent publishing. But the way I got into it was that I was trying to teach corporations how to do social media, and I felt there was no point to getting a book deal on that because things were changing so quickly at the time. So in 2009, I actually published my first book myself, and it was nonfiction. So then that kind of segued into the fiction stuff in 2011.
What was that first book called?
I don't want to say. It's so
really?
It's not up anymore. Well, it probably is up somewhere, but I don't want to say. And
okay, I won't force you.
It did do okay. It sold quite a few books at the time, and then it was also kind of like a calling card. So that's how self-publishing was then. You only published nonfiction, and it was like a calling card so that you could sell consulting or marketing or whatever else. So it did actually work for that. I landed several jobs from it. So it wasn't an embarrassment. It also got published in French. So there were some successes, but I just don't want anyone to go look for it.
So we'll just take there were some successes, but please don't ever Google.
Oh my gosh.
That's pretty awesome. Okay, so one of the things that you are really passionate about is going wide versus only selling on Amazon. So can you tell our audience a little bit about what going wide means?
Sure. The way that it's most commonly used in the industry is that you are going to be on multiple retailers with your ebook. So Amazon has a program called Kindle Unlimited that if you publish to that program, you can choose to be exclusive, and that puts you into their subscription program, and you make money off of not just sales but also page reads. But in exchange for that, being part of their page reads program where you can earn money from that, you have to only be published with them in ebook specifically. So ebook is a large chunk of most independent authors' money. So it's kind of a big deal to choose that. So being wide is really saying that you're going to forgo that Kindle Unlimited program and publish to multiple retailers. And so the other big four retailers are Kobo, Apple Books, Barnes & Noble, and Google Play Books. And so if you publish to those as well, then you can just reach more audiences through their apps.
So why do you okay, so I'm with my one little book. I'm technically in Kindle Unlimited at the moment. But I have a big series planned and I've been kind of debating the whole going wide versus going basically doing something new versus staying with what I know, which is Amazon. So why do you suggest or do you suggest it for every author, or is it situational?
Yeah, it definitely depends. I mean, I think the first thing to start with is what you want to do and what would be best for you, because with Kindle Unlimited and with Amazon, you go to that one retailer, you only have to learn one retailer, so that can be pretty helpful, especially if you tend to get overwhelmed. With the other retailers, it's times it's like the same amount of work as Amazon, but then times five, or times, if you're going even further, times like 10. So like every single platform is going to be a new learning experience. So you kind of have to decide if that is something that you're excited about, or if that's going to be a little bit overwhelming to you. I think for a lot of authors, especially if you're on like just a couple books, it probably is a bit overwhelming to you. The other thing is that the wide retailers, they tend to work better with a free first in series. So, and you can do a discount one, but the free first in series is one of the better ways to get visibility there. So it really helps to have, like 3, 4, 4+ books in your series before you would really even go over there. So I don't know. Now that said, Kindle Unlimited also works well if you have a series. Kind of everything works better if you have a series. So it's not to say don't go over there. Um, it's just to say that you want some sort of like established catalog of like a couple books at least, before you would really start to gain traction on some of those sites.
So you see the benefit is being what? The fact that it's a broader audience, you have
Yeah.
more international. I mean, what is the
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely a broader audience. It is a more international audience. It's also more. It's just like if you are trying to kind of not put all your eggs in one basket. It's good to try to develop multiple income streams, because what happens on Amazon, and this happened a couple years ago. That was when I decided like I was kind of done with Kindle Unlimited, because I've been wide with some of my stuff. I've been in Kindle Unlimited, and like, so I kind of have experience on both ends. But for me, what kind of was the end of that for me, it was Amazon really has a lot of control over whether you can publish. I mean, well, they have full control over whether you can publish with them or not, and they were closing accounts with no appeal, basically, and they were doing that. I haven't heard of them doing much of that lately, but they were doing that to like purge scammers, purge people from the system who were trying to boost their page reads, and who, so it was a good thing. But certainly, if you are trying to automatically get rid of like thousands of scammers, certainly you're going to catch a couple good people, good authors at the same time. So that was where I was kind of not really okay with that. And I did have actually had a friend who was like, I am not doing any of this, and I knew that she wasn't, and she was like, my account was threatened to be closed. So just little stuff like that. I was like, I'm not super comfortable with putting my whole career in this one basket, and so I want to go wide for that reason.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that it also then changes your advertisement strategy as well?
Yeah, it changes everything. Kind of. It's not. Yeah, so I mean, it changes all sorts of stuff. It even changes what you write, to be honest, because the wider platforms, they don't have such niche readers in my experience. So on Kindle Unlimited, you're, to some extent, a lot of the bigger authors, they're writing to trend a little bit, in the sense where, like, maybe they're an urban fantasy writer, but now, like, Paranormal Academy is getting hot, so they're moving over to there, and so, like, that's their next series. And now, like, Prison Academy, or like Paranormal Prison is hot, so now they're doing a series there. So it's not just, so it's like that isn't really the case on the wider platforms. The stuff that, like, contemporary romance, for example, is probably the hottest one. Now, contemporary romance in Kindle Unlimited is very, very competitive. On the wider platforms, it's, there's fewer people there. And so it's just kind of a very basic, a book that, like a billionaire book, for example, that could do well wide. It may be like pretty competitive in KU, I've seen.
Yeah, interesting. So you're not necessarily saying, in a way, that it's a little more, maybe not quite as niche, maybe a little more, not really fair to say generalist, but it's just broader categories. It's not going to be so targeted.
It's not going to be so targeted. And a lot of that is because they still push a lot of traditional publishers. So Amazon, for example, they're heavily driven by algorithms. All their marketing, all their sales, all their visibility. Of course, they have a little bit of merchandising for, like, their own books, for New York Times bestsellers, that sort of thing. But they are very driven by, sales. Like, the sales rank is the number one thing there that people are looking at. And that's what determines a lot of your visibility push. Whereas on the wide platforms, they do all have their algorithmic stuff, but in a lot of ways, they're still merchandised pretty heavily. And traditional publishing takes up some of that. And then they pretty much all have opportunities for independent authors as well to be merchandised alongside with its traditional publishing books.
That's interesting to me because, like, in, just kind of looking around, because, like, I have an iPhone, so obviously I look at Apple Books and stuff like that sometimes. Even the covers look different. Like, covers on Amazon are very, especially like YA or paranormal, urban fantasy, all those, like, they're very, like, I don't know. It's always like a Barbie and then some sort of fantasy background. Like, they all look the same to me, kind of, which is the point. But I almost feel like if you, like, you're knowing that you're going to go wide has to be something that you know from, like, the very beginning, because some of these covers are $300 and $400 a piece, and you don't want to have to buy a cover for everybody else and then a different cover for Amazon, right? Like, so do you suggest that it's part of, like, the plan from the very beginning of these books, or?
Yeah, I think that a couple of things. So yes, you're right. The covers are very different, and I don't think people totally realize that. I think people sometimes they're like, "Oh, my KU time is up, so let me just drop my books wide and see what happens." And it's like, that's not going to be as successful because it's a very different market. Again, you are up against traditional publishers in that market, so, like, your pricing needs to be different and more on par with, like, what a traditionally somebody who's looking for a traditionally published book, they don't want, like, a $2.99 book, because all the books on Apple Books are like $15. I don't know if you look, like $12.99, $14.99, like, that's what the bestsellers are. So you want to be at like $5.99, $7.99 for a lot of genres, and that that's something people don't realize. Same with covers. Like, the covers that do well in KU, they don't necessarily do well on these other retailers. And then same with, so, like, let's take the example of the Paranormal Prison Academy that probably does pretty well on Kindle Unlimited right now. So if you were to take that book wide, I would kind of de-emphasize some of those things. So, like, I would probably write a new description for it and make it much more even on the cover, everything, make it just much more like young adult, like young adult paranormal is what I would aim for, not so specific to
just happens to be in prison.
Yeah, it happens to be a prison academy, but yeah, so it's like, let people discover that, because you look at some of the books in young adult that are being traditionally published, the covers are very, like, they're not that specific, even if it was a book about that.
Yeah, they're very I don't even know how to explain it, but there's just a way, like you look at a KU book and you know right away, like they have their own design aesthetic almost,
Yeah.
which is very, very different from traditional publishing. So, what are I'm curious because you've kind of been dispelling some myths and stuff like that about going wide. Like, what are some common misconceptions that writers have about going wide? Because I've always heard that it's really difficult and time consuming, which probably is, but also that they don't make as much money. Like,
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. I don't. So the money myth is really interesting. Unless you're like the tippy top of KU, you can make plenty of money wide, like comparable money wide. So KU, like if you're like a top seller and you're some people are making like $1 million a month in KU, but unless that's you, like unless
right.
you're making like 50K, like 25K, 50K a month in KU, you like you can probably make that money wide. It is going to take some time. So that's definitely one thing. What else? What other misconceptions? Because I you listed a couple that I wanted to address.
Well, just that it's a lot more difficult and
Yeah.
which you kind of touched on a little bit because it is more time consuming, but like aren't there things like does Draft to Digital make it easier to go wide or different aggregators?
Yeah, so Draft to Digital is a great company. That isn't. It's a aggregator or distributor. I guess you can. I don't know what they call themselves, but basically you upload your book to them, and then they will push it to all the other platforms. So that's a good way to get started, if it's something that appeals to you. But yeah, I think the question of is it harder? I think that there's just more to learn. So again, you're learning like 5 different platforms. That's not going to happen all at once.
Yeah.
Like I think most people would be good if they just had like a 6-month plan of like, okay, I'm going to learn like Google Books first, and then I'll, for a month and like try to get my books going there, and then I'll move to Kobo for a month. And so I think that is kind of a better approach. I also think it's far less competitive. So
Mm.
it's like, KU as a program, it's inherently competitive. It has to be. Like the sales rank is literally a leaderboard, and that everybody can see. So it's just an inherently competitive program because as a person goes up, other people have to go down. That's what a sales rank is, right? And that's the main driver on Amazon as a whole. So it is that is a competitive program. And so if you're more of like a forge your own path type of person, which I am, that could be appealing to you to go wide because you could be doing well on any of those platforms, and you could find success in many different ways. Not playing kind of like the KU program has some pretty inherent, like you said, pretty strict rules for
Mhm.
success. But and even down to like authors in KU, they release at like the beginning of the month, for example, because they want to get as many page views as possible. Like they're just like these little things that you can do in KU. And so this is going from one game, one thing to hack, to going to five things to hack, 10 things to hack. And so if you like to hack things, then that could be a reason to go wide. And it's not necessarily harder. It's a very different game.
So going wide, not only, I want to make sure I really understand what you're saying. It's not only learning how to create a product that gets uploaded in the proper format, but it also you're talking about, and then how you then position it and position yourself so that people want to go find it and buy it. Is there anything else that it includes besides those two things, or are there other things in addition?
Yeah, I mean, I think really either. I don't think those two things are exclusive to going wide. I think you have to do that in KU as well.
Right.
Um, yeah, I do think so. I think on the wide platforms, it's just you need to learn each system separately in many ways. So one of the biggest mistakes people make is they have a very spray and pray approach, which is I learned about this analogy that I was like, should I even use that for phrase? Because I had learned about it in like marketing and PR first, but then I learned that it was like about like guns or something. So I don't know. Yeah, now what you think?
That wasn't quite the picture I had in my mind.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so apologies. I'm not trying to offend anyone, but basically people are like, oh, I'm going to go from Amazon to Wide. So I'm just going to put all my stuff up on the Wide platforms and like what works for Wide. And it's like, that's not really how it works. It's like, well, what works for Kobo? What works for Apple Books? What works for Barnes and Noble? And they're all separate. And you really have to like learn them all separately, or else I mean, you could get lucky on all five platforms and be doing well kind of naturally. But
and when you say what works, you're referring, that's what I was trying to understand.
Sure.
You're defining something, and I want to know exactly what it is that you're putting in that.
Yeah, what works for getting sales, basically.
Okay.
So what works in terms of marketing, what works in terms of bringing you more visibility on the platform, what works in terms of promoting yourself. Yeah.
So what she's saying is that not only do we have to learn all the algorithms and stuff for TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, but now we got to learn Apple, Kobo, Google Play, because we don't have enough to do, right?
Yeah, well, no, I think that's a concern that a lot of authors have. Like it's a lot to learn.
Oh, it is for sure, and I think it was always very daunting to me. And now I'm interested because you say, it's like the forge your own path type of thing, and that's kind of the person that I am. It's like, give me a challenge and I'm going to do it. But I've always heard that short reads don't do well when you go wide, and I write serials, which are, 20,000 words a piece. And so that's kind of why I've always been like, nope, I have to go into KU. Is that true for shorter books?
It's not true for shorter books. There's a woman named, she doesn't mind me saying her name, but her name is Laura Greenwood. And if you go into the Wide for the Win Facebook group, you can search for her posts. She's written a couple there, but I think she writes a mix of novels and novellas. So I don't know if she writes serials, but yeah, you can absolutely do fine with serials. It may be a little less conventional. It's also not very conventional on Amazon though. So that said, I do have another a couple friends who write romance serials, and so what they do, and they are wide. Ember Casey and Raina Peak. So what they do is they bundle their serials into, I think, like a 6-book box set, and it's like a completed story. And those do quite well, I think. They get book bubs, all sorts of stuff. So they're successful there too. So I think serials are always they're going to be a different thing than a novel either way, and novels are kind of the most popular one that people want to buy. So either way, you probably have a slight challenge there.
Oh yeah, I've kind of known that from the beginning, but
box sets, box sets are your friend.
Well, yeah, it was one thing that gave me hope is there's I think it's Sarah K.L. Wilson writes serials, the Dragon School serials, and now she's got a bunch of them. But she, was always like, I make up, the price difference, they're priced at $2.99 or whatever, but I make it up in KU because people don't want to pay $2.99 for 20,000 words. And I'm like, well, okay. But I kind of like the idea of forging, or I don't know, maybe I just like to make things difficult for myself.
Well, I mean, yeah, so that's awesome. I know her as well. And yeah, I think you can be successful with serials either place. On the wide platforms, so Kobo does have a like subscription, I guess, kind of similar to you. It's not exclusive, and it was originally just available in couple European countries, but they did recently open to Canada. So you could, that could be something. I think maybe some other platforms may eventually have that as well. But either way, if you have like kind of a box set plan, I think that will really help. And I know that BookBub really likes those box sets, even in serial format. So,
do you find the longevity is different? That there's there's a longer longevity, if that's such a word?
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think I know what you're. Yeah, I think I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
So on the wide platforms, on most of them, and again, they're all different, but yes, if so, history matters a lot more on those platforms in the sense that if your book performs well, that tail is longer in terms of promotion. So the other thing is, like, if you have a freebie there, that free read will have like higher sell through in a lot of cases. So again, it's like these are retailers that are less competitive by nature. Amazon's kind of got like everybody always uploads to Amazon either way, but these retailers, like anybody in KU or any books in KU, are not on these retailers. So there is just, like, by the math, a lot less competition. Now there are also fewer readers, but they tend to be a little bit more loyal and higher read through. They're not freebie seekers. So there's some good opportunity there.
I'm preparing to launch a memoir later this year. My previous books have been in a completely different genre. They're actually short reads, devotionals. So, and that was years ago. There's been years span in between these two. So yeah, and obviously, since it's a memoir, there's not going to be a follow-up. Although I have thought, because I'm a psychologist, I have thought of writing an analysis of the book from a psychological perspective, and then offer that maybe as a freebie. If you'd like to understand what happened, this is the psychologist's take on what went on here. So I don't know. Thoughts? Would it be better if I stay with Amazon, or is it? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I think what I would do, whether you go Kindle Unlimited or wide, whichever one you choose, I think that you have a standalone. So, like if you have any sort of free entry point, that will be good. So then the analysis, you could also do something else, like, take a couple chapters or something, or even just write something else that's smaller. And that's always going to help you on either platform. The other thing is, I mean, for me at least, since it is a standalone, since it's nonfiction, I would probably price a little bit higher than you probably feel comfortable with, and I would just plan to have an ad strategy. I've found that I also write nonfiction. I've found that with nonfiction, the higher pricing just works really well. So all my books are basically $9.99. I have a couple that are $5.99 that are entry points, but for the most part, $9.99, and then I just put ads on it and just call it a day. And so you can also, you can blog and all that stuff too. But I would probably not depend on Kindle Unlimited for that. And in general, nonfiction can do okay in Kindle Unlimited, but it's really not it's not like, at least for me, and everybody I've talked to, so I'm sure there's a nonfiction author who's like successful in KU that's going to be like, she's wrong. But like, for the most part of the people I've talked to who write nonfiction, they did not see enough results in KU. You'll even see nonfiction authors who are both not in KU and also not on wide retailers, which was me for a while, because it was like the KU really can eat into your sales when you can actually just get like quite a bit of, you can get a pretty solid profit from sales instead of KU reads.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I have been blogging wildly and doing all sorts of things.
Good. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, we both kind of started on Medium and then have gone all these different directions, including podcasts. But so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Clubhouse, which is kind of the new thing to learn, I guess. Well, Kerry and I are both in the process of learning how to TikTok at the same time as we learn how to use Clubhouse. I'll tell you, one is a lot simpler than the other one. I don't have to worry about being funny on Clubhouse. So,
or figuring
but
out sound bites in 15
Yeah.
seconds. Exactly.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I was kind of wondering, Clubhouse and TikTok, if you're on there or anything else, what you're using to kind of market your new nonfiction line that's coming out.
So I am not using, I mean, I want to be using both of those. I'm not consistent at using both of them. Yeah, so TikTok, I have a couple of videos up, and they're doing fine. I haven't posted in probably a month, at least. So that's going well, obviously. um, Clubhouse. Okay, so Clubhouse is pretty cool. So right now it's only iPhone or iPad. I actually access it on my iPad, not on an iPhone because I don't have one. So you need that. You need an invite to get in, which a lot
I
of
have
people
7.
by.
Like if anybody wants to DM me, I have a bunch.
Yeah, I have literally like 17, like between like a club that I have and then like my just personal account. So anyway, yeah, the way Clubhouse works is once you get onto the app, you follow people and it will show you these rooms that you can go into. And so the rooms are happening live. There's kind of a calendar situation, but it's hard to keep track. So we actually have a group on Facebook called Clubhouse Authors. So you should join it because that's where people are posting. People who you want to hear from are posting their Clubhouse events. So basically, you have a couple people on the stage, and then people will raise their hand to ask questions, and that's kind of what it is. And it all happens live. None of it's recorded. Very U.S. centric right now as well. So a lot of people are annoyed. A lot of people overseas are annoyed by that. That they, a lot of the stuff is happening during U.S. hours. But yeah, it's great. You can gain access to people who you wouldn't normally be able to reach out to. So as a new author, you can chatting with like Dan Wood from Drafted Digital, and you can get on stage, ask him all the questions you want, and he's a bad example because he's actually pretty accessible to most people.
Right.
But I mean, so it's like you can get an audience with companies and also just people that you're not typically able to reach out to that easily. So that's a good thing about it.
I really like it because it's almost like live podcasting, or like when self-publishing podcasts first started, they did like live Zoom calls or whatever, and you could ask a question while they were podcasting, and it's kind of like that, and I've found that really interesting. But yeah, I found myself in a room with Mr. Beast from YouTube not that long ago, and people were asking him all questions about how to start a YouTube channel and stuff like that, and then he gave away $10,000, and like it's just really random things, but I find it really interesting. Do you think that people can use it to market as fiction authors, or is it more geared towards like writing coaches and nonfiction writers?
Yeah, I think right now that if you are a coach or like a service-based provider, it's a great place to be. If you're selling products, it's a less great place to be, just in general. So, and then if you're selling products that are fiction, then it's going to be a bit till all the readers come on board. So it's just not mainstream enough right now. It's mostly like entrepreneurial coaches, writers, whoever else, podcasters, whatever. So people who are already in the online / digital space, who are building their businesses there, those are the people that I think are on it more right now. And a lot of the rooms are geared toward, professional content.
I think it's really hard because like we kind of have two facets. Kerry and I both have two facets of our business, which is there's some services and community and nonfiction and stuff like that, but then it's like we're still trying to figure out this puzzle of how do you market fiction works when you don't have like a fiction reading audience. Like I don't have a fiction. My whole audience was built on Medium. So they're just reading posts about how my life is a shit show. And I don't know how to then be like, okay, now read my zombie book. Like how do I find these people? Like where are they at, you know? So how do you, or what suggestions would you have for like marketing fiction works or
Yeah.
finding your tribe for that?
Yeah, I mean, it is a good question. I think with fiction, the biggest thing is that you want to have a sample of some sort. So I think that's why free books in general work pretty well. Um, and then, I know this is not the answer that people want, but it really is advertising. Like, try to give your sample away somehow.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be advertising, but man, is that it's just faster. So it's like, and it's like, it's so much. I mean, learning the app platforms is like whatever. That's the same thing. Like added to the list, right? But yeah, I do think that you've just got to get your free sample of some sort into the hands, and it can be a couple chapters, it can be a full novella or a full novel, like whatever it is. Though you got to get it into the hands of people, and you got to get it's got to have conversion to the next thing, which is typically like a second book in the series. So um yeah, I've seen some people do okay on like Instagram. I mean the other thing I would say is like pick like one or two platforms and just go all in on those like social platforms or like strategies or whatever. So like if you want to do book talk, like go hard on book talk and just try to get people to read that first free thing that you have, and hope that it converts, and then like eventually you'll know how well it converts, and then you try to improve that number. But yeah, it's tough. It's harder harder than blogging on Medium and nonfiction and all that stuff. So
One of the things that seems to be really key is reviews. How are you obtaining, especially when you're new, how do you obtain a review that seems verifiable, authentic? What's because
yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think giving away, again, it's like giving away books. It's kind of the number one way to get reviews. There's a company called Booksprout, which I think is solid. So you put your book up there for review, and they're able to download it, and it's like a system. So I put a book up there. It was nonfiction, so not at all what they specialize in fiction, so
Okay.
you will have better results than this. I put a book up there that was nonfiction, and I think I had 14 or so takers. Most of them did end up writing reviews for it, and I had it to where they had to post it on multiple sites. So I, was able to get, I don't know, like again, like 10 reviews at least from that. So I know for fiction, I've heard people getting like 30 to 50 reviews from something like that. So I think that's kind of the main way. Now you don't have to use Booksprout. You can set that up yourself. Again, have your free landing, your review landing page, and send some traffic to it through advertising, through posting in groups, through swaps, through book talk, like whatever it is. Reviews are, I think I get 20 to 25%, typically, outside of a service like Booksprout. 25 to 20 or 20 to 25% of people who sign up to review will complete the review. So if you want 100 reviews on your book, try to get 400 to 500 people on that review sign up. But yeah, just have a landing page, get people to sign up to it.
wow, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
That is a way bigger number than I thought it was going to be. You're like, but it makes sense.
Yeah, at least it's realistic, At least you know what you're hitting for
Yeah.
now.
My book that I published in October, which is nonfiction poetry and personal essays, I just realized I don't check very often at all, but it has 5 reviews on Amazon, and I was like, oh, big money. But that was one of those things, like you say, like, the leaderboard, the sales board on Amazon is very public, and it is. Like I knew to be number one in the poetry or poetry about love category or whatever, and to like get an orange sticker, I had to sell like 10 copies the first day or the first week or something, or 10 copies a day for the first week. And it was like this really low number. But when you get into some of the higher numbers, it's kind of daunting to think about, oh, you know, to rank in contemporary romance, you only have to sell like 450 copies per day, you know. But then it's not hard for people to know. I always feel weird because I'm like, somebody could definitely just put my rank into the calendar and be like, oh, she sells this many books daily. And I was like, that's very public.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But I kind of feel like I like this trend. And I think it's just because I like, you know, being in places that aren't super oversaturated. And we were just talking before you came on, like, I hate Instagram. I like posting pictures of my kids on Instagram and stuff like that, but I hate using it as a marketing platform because it's just so saturated. Whereas like I go to TikTok, and even though it's uncomfortable to like be on TikTok, I get more interaction. And you know, as far as like writing and, you know, book talk or writer talk or whatever, there really aren't a lot of us on there, and so it's a little bit easier to find your way. And so I think that's why wide really appeals to me. I don't know, Carrie, does it appeal to you? Are you thinking about it? Or
Yeah, no,
you know,
I do think I think I will do it. I actually had heard you, Monica, talk on another podcast about it. So I already had been thinking about it prior to hearing you. And you know, but I want to go back to what you said, Ashley, about Instagram. I think we get these perceptions about certain things and we miss it. Like right now, Instagram is able to do lives for 4 people. You can have 4 people at the same time talking, you know, about a topic. We could be podcasting right now live on Instagram. I think there's like these niches that we're missing because we don't like know how, because it's always changing, you know. It's always, because TikTok is shaking everything up so bad, everybody's trying to compete with them. So the result of that, there's these algorithms would kind of like, it's hard to, that's what I find hard. It's hard to stay current because things are shifting so fast. I mean, you have to become an expert on all these, as you're saying now, we have to become experts on all these places to sell. We have to become experts on all this media.
She said pick two.
All the time.
She said pick 2 social platforms, okay?
I know, I
picked two, TikTok and Clubhouse. All the other ones you can just like go away. Like
I want to get better Instagram, because you know what I'm finding on Instagram? If I repurpose my videos for TikTok over Instagram, I have been freaking amazed by how they move. They really are. They're really moving.
Oh yeah.
I feel like you just have this goal that you just like really want me to be on Instagram because I hate it so much.
I have the same goal that you do, Ashley, and that is I want to be
world domination.
I want to like be dominant. I want a world domination, whatever I do. But
well, you said we have the same goal. That's my goal. I'm world domination from my yacht.
That's why we're doing it together, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, it's been fascinating hearing you talk, Monica. But yeah, there's a part of me that's a little hesitant. In fact, this was one of my questions for you. Have you done this experiment where you've done one that's Kindle Unlimited only, and then done something really similar and tested it and saw what would be the side-by-side results? Now, honestly, you can't do it on the same product because it doesn't work that way unless you pull it off and then redo it again. But I wondered if you've kind of tried to do a side-by-side comparison, and what was your experience with that?
I've not done the side-by-side comparison. What I have done is I've been in KU. I was in KU for many years with a lot of my stuff. And I, at the same time, for another pen name, I had stuff wide. And yeah, I mean, I think it's tough because it's tough to know what to do because you might make more money in one or the other, but it's also like what lasts over time. And so I think that's where I struggled. I personally struggled with KU and Amazon as well, is that things can be a bit ephemeral there for me. For example, right now my Amazon ads were working great a couple weeks ago, and now they're not. And I'm like, great, I was selling like 10 a day on here, and now I'm like in like a 300, 400 rank, and like it's like and that type of stuff frustrates me. So for me, I needed something that felt more consistent.
Yeah.
The so yeah, I think there are ways that people kind of test that. So one is that they may start in KU with a book, for example, and be there for 3 months. It's only a 90-day commitment,
Right.
and then they may decide to take it wide. So that's a test that you can do of your content. The other thing I've seen people do is they launch for the first month wide, and then they take the book and they go into KU and they start racking up those page reads. And so I think for both systems, like I think the page read stuff and Amazon as well, I think you do start to gain momentum there. And it's not really like a snowball effect. It's really that you are paired with books that are doing well as well, and you kind of like work your way up in terms of how their algorithms promote you. um, and I don't know if that's also true with the page reads. I think it could be like once you're kind of in their system, but with that, like you kind of have to like. I guess with both you really do have to keep advertising. So I won't say it's just KU, but yeah. So it's like on the Amazon platform, it's a little more ephemeral, a little bit more launch based sometimes. But it seems like as you get better also bots, then you start to sell better. You usually have to keep it up with the Amazon advertising system.
Yeah.
On the wide retailers, history really matters, but things move a lot slower there. So it's like you can have, you kind of have to do the same thing, but with them, it feels a little bit more cumulative than it does on Amazon. I could be wrong. Amazon could also have some sort of cumulative thing, but with the wide retailers, it feels like as you start to gain traction there, it really starts to build over time. And you can accelerate that with advertising, which a lot of authors are not doing right now. So I just want to say that if you want to go, because like that was something you said earlier, Ashley, like, oh, it takes so long on the wide platforms. It's like, yeah, if you just upload them and don't do anything or just do the in-house promos, then it's going to take long. If you like do your own advertising, then it's like very quick, because you really don't have to sell that much to like go up in those rankings. Yeah, so I don't know if I'm answering your question. I feel like I'm just kind of like blah 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 blah.
No, that's very helpful. But one of the things I've been doing, and I put it in. I have like it's called Beacons, similar to a link tree, and I actually am linking to my blog articles, which my memoir is. Some of the blog articles actually talk about the same issue, and so when I do lives, which I do almost every day, which by the way really pushes your algorithm with TikTok. I mean, freaking amazing. You want to really move it, go live consistently. And then I talk about the fact a little bit about my story and tell people that I'm writing on it and tell people I'm writing. And it's amazing. People will then go check things out, or can't say, oh, they can't wait to read it. Now, will it convert? We'll have to see because the book's not available yet. But I'm seeing this as a strategic effort to have people know me as a brand and know that the story is coming out and sort of kind of, gear it up.
You should have your book on pre-order if you're doing that. I didn't realize you were doing that. And you can do a pre-order. Can't you do a pre-order like a year out?
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah, you should have that on pre-order.
Well, that means I need to get that cover done then.
Yeah, get your cover done now. Get it on pre-order.
All right. I was even just making a plan. I was laying all this out. This needs to be done by here, and this needs to be done by here. But yeah, you're right. I'm not that far off on a cover, so that could.
I didn't realize that you were like already starting to like point them directly towards the book because then you would know if it would be converting or not.
Right. Thank you guys. Yeah, no, yeah. I'm mentioning that I'm a writer. I'm promoting myself as a writer. So.
Yeah, and until you have the pre-order, you can put up like an email sign up. So I'd recommend that. So sign up to get it and have a page and with all the book information and say sign up to get notified when this goes on pre-order.
Okay.
You'll be able to see very quickly if it's working. Some of the retailers, their pre-order numbers don't come in very quickly, or they don't show at all in some cases. It's like, okay, this is not helpful. But yeah, so definitely
one thing that is happening that's interesting is that live on TikTok shows you when people immediately follow. So if you're talking and it converts into a follow, they tell you, and then at the end they give you stats. This is your conversion rate during your, and I'm running at 95% of all TikTokers I'm converting during lives. So it's like, okay, this is
Congratulations.
working. That's why I'm putting this effort into it. So
Yeah, no, that's great.
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, all of this is, to me, like you, Ashley, I think it's all fascinating. It's like, yeah, but what else can I figure out?
I mean,
After, you know?
I think it's fascinating. It's also like really overwhelming. Like I'm sitting here going like, crap, now I have homework. Like I gotta go do stuff after this. Like I wanted to take a nap. Like
Yeah, but you know, Ashley, and you as well, Kerry, I get the sense that you're both kind of hackers, because Medium is also, and Ashley, you're the one who taught me how to do Medium, just to like the little extent that I do, like my 750 followers. But yeah, it's like, you know, if you can hack Medium, you can hack some of these other platforms too pretty easily. So
yeah, that's what I've always told Carrie is like we just talked about this last week. Like this is not like a lottery ticket. Like this is
mm-mm.
not like something, you know, that only a few people have the key to figure this out. You know, and if I keep telling her, you know, if one person did it, we can do it. Like it might take us a little bit longer. We're gonna have to figure it out. Like we just launched, we're doing writers retreats. We're doing a writer's retreat in October in Mexico and then again in February. And I was like, I know people have done this. So
Mm-hmm.
we're just going to have to figure it out. You know, I want to do
Yeah,
this.
Right.
yeah.
So, it's very encouraging. And I like being able to talk to, you know, you, and we've had Claire on and, you know, more interviews lined up. Tammy's going to come talk to us about newsletters and stuff like that. And so it's fabulous to have this opportunity to kind of learn from people who forged a path. But I like the word hacker. That's good. I'm gonna
Yeah.
add that.
Yeah.
All right. So if you had one, and this is probably gonna be difficult, but if you had one piece of advice to give to newbie writers who are considering going wide or going on Amazon exclusively, what would you tell them?
Ashley, you need to repeat it. We lost you in the middle of that.
I love my internet so much. I can't wait to move. Okay, start the whole question over?
Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
All right, so this is probably going to be a difficult question to answer, but if you had one piece of advice for newbie writers who are trying to decide whether they should go wide or if they should go to Amazon exclusively, what would you give them?
That was a really tough question. And I think like you just have to decide. I guess the way I decided was I kind of looked at like my own values and like I said earlier, am I like the type of person who wants to forge my own path and like you know, the other thing is I had a lot of passion for the wide retailers. So I like to look at systems or look at platforms and like figure out how to do well on them. So that was very appealing to me. And you just have to know the type of person that you are, also what you want to write. And it's a very personal decision. I think people can be successful either way. And, you know, a lot of, yeah, there is the question of money. And, you know, I think you just have to decide what's the most important thing to you over the long term. So that's not a good answer, but
No, it really is because you
It
know
is.
it's like a lot of things in writing career and even the writing process and all these things. It really is very personal to each person. And listening to you talk about it, I was like, okay, in the short term, I would probably make more money on Amazon. However, um, I don't like all of my income coming from one place. It's one of the reasons I don't only write on Medium.
Right.
You know, I write on Newsbreak and other places because you know, Medium will do an algorithm switch and then my stats will go in the toilet for like
Mhm.
6 months. So
Yeah.
I'm not a put all, I like my eggs in many baskets.
Mhm.
So that is very appealing to me. It's a little bit more, you know, in my
Sure.
control. Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
So I think you're spot on that, you know, as new writers, you really just have to take a step back and make long-term successful decision for yourself, or, you know, instead
Yeah.
of just looking at, I know it's easy to be like money, 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 you know,
Mhm.
like, but I think even though it's a slower climb, it's probably a very good option for a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah. I also think you, if you want to kind of hear from hear from people on both sides. 20 Books to 50K is a Facebook group that a lot of the authors, I mean, it's a very big group, so authors are kind of all over the board there, but there are plenty of KU authors in there that you could talk to. And then Wide for the Win is another Facebook group, also pretty large, not as large as 20 Books, but a lot of the authors in there are specifically wide. So you can really get a feel for like both and what is involved in these it's not like there's only two paths, but it seems like a pretty big conversation and a big decision for a lot of authors that they're considering.
That's awesome. Well, I will put the links to both 20 Books and Wide for the Win in the show notes or the YouTube description if you guys are watching us on there. Hi. Great. Monica, where can we find you? Or where can our listeners find you?
Sure. My website is called theworldneedsyourbook.com. So you can find me there. I also have two series for authors. One is called The Productive Novelist, and it's really for the writing process, writing, publishing, marketing process, and it's very like high level strategic. And then I have a new series coming out called Book Sales Supercharged, and that is one that's about the wide platform. So there's a book about Apple Books, there's a book about Barnes and Noble, and there's also an intro book called Get Your Book Selling Wide. And so you can look that up. It's either free or 99 cents on all the retailers and on my website as well. And that's going to just give you an overview of what wide really is. And then you can decide if you want to continue the series.
I was waiting for it to be like, you can get my book, How to Get Your Book Selling Wide, only on Amazon. No. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming and chatting with us today. And guys, anything that we referenced during the show, I'll put links in the show notes, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thank you so much, Monica.
Thanks for having me.
Bye, guys.